Yes. You...
And good afternoon to everybody. I asked to Assitej board to have this meeting to talk about the digital revolution from other points of view. So until now we had a different meeting talked about technical stuff and which are the possibilities to work with. But I was interested into a discussion with the artists, theater director and people and friends from youth theater about the approach that we can use during the productions. So in this perspective, I want to talk with you about some application on stage and the hybridization of different languages. So what I'm investigating in the use of the technology is not the use of a technique in itself, but the combination between traditional languages and technological innovations. So this combination for me makes sense. And that's why I wanted to show you some sample of in practice of what I'm thinking, especially some artworks from Jason Cross, which at the moment cannot join into this meeting, but we recorded him this morning. And I had a short speech from him already recorded. And as for Tony, if you don't mind, I can send you some videos of your company meanwhile we are talking. And also for Liz Ran, which I hope she can join us. Also, I see that Steve Mcintosh
is already here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm here, David.
Okay,
and
thank
everyone.
you. I was trying to keep some time because I didn't see you in the list. So, and also Stephen now is joined, right? Stephen, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, thank you so much. I was a little bit worried about, so I didn't see you. So let's go with the sharing video. So I will show you 3 short clips from Insite Art Company, which represent for me 3 examples of a hybridization of digital languages and traditional languages that for me are quite significant. First of all, this was a work with the Aboriginal community. So we share the protocol for between our way to work and the Aboriginal standard of working with kids. And so we shared this experience and we made a show together, mixing different artists coming from the Aboriginal community, painters, musicians, singer, and we create this narrative story about an imaginary journey inside Australia. And this was quite important because this was one of the first hybridization of a way of working. So high tech and low tech mixed together. These other works, which for me is quite interesting, comes from Flor Noble, from Noble, who is an artist, single artist, works with painting, puppets, work in paper, and video. And I met her in Australia because it was part of the Insite art company portfolio, but maybe some of you have already saw her works. I saw that she was in Imaginate for sure. But for me at the moment, she represents one of the best combination between the different kind of languages on stage. So this is just a few clips. So one of the reasons why I choose Flora Nabel is because when I saw her work, for me it was so much impressive because I had the sensation to be inside a painter atelier, and things became alive in so close a space shared together. Then another works comes from Architect of Arts. Just a moment, I need to find the video. So Architects of Art, it's completely different kind of works. It's something in between installation and immersive theater. And it works with the lights. You can enter.
Fate sempre delle rendicontazioni economiche. I bilanci sono solo quelli che dicono quanto è entrato e quanto.
Ok, Davide.
So as you can see, it's another kind of application in which the focus is in the space and to be inside a sensible and fascinating space. And now I wanted to share with you the interview I made this morning with Jason Cross, who handled Flora Nabel, the show Saltbush, and the Architect of Arts. It's 10 minutes of talking about these three artwork.
One of the most, I suppose, critical parts of the story for me personally as a white person of European heritage was that it opened up a whole understanding about my country and where I live. And that's what the technology allowed us to do, to explore those diverse landscapes and different ideas. So it's profound in that way from a personal point of view, but also in terms of the form of the theatre that was created. And critically, you know, within the context of this work, it encourages a relationship between the child and the landscape, but also the viewer, that it's me or you or the parent or other children, to watch that child inside that landscape. So the narratives are playing, and the narratives are both for the child who's experiencing it themselves, but also for the viewer on the outside watching them. And it creates a far more diverse set of experiences. Yeah, so Flora Nabel is an Australian artist, practices very independently. And when I mean independently, I mean that she works as a solo visual artist. And her background is in visual arts as an illustrator or drawer and painter. And when Fleur started making theatre, probably about 12 years ago, She hadn't trained in theatre and really had very little knowledge of theatre practice and its form and its historical relevance really within the visual arts. And at the time had very little knowledge of the projected technologies which had been developed and the more sensorial technologies and touch technologies, and furthermore really the nature of how the technology of the projector had changed the theatre, and say going back to the 1970s, to Robert Wilson and so forth in the 1950s. So Fleur approached the nature of the use of the visual image in the theatre quite in what I regard as both using techniques which had come from stop animation, cartooning, from more simplistic forms of just pure using drawing, and then using technologies to speed up the projected picture or the illustration. And I suppose.
Sorry, there's somebody who has the microphone open. Julia, can you check who is keeping the microphone open?
Yes, it was Tony, but it's okay now, I think.
Okay.
The way that particularly her initial work, Two-Dimensional Life of Her, was created was essentially created very much in the same way that a painter would sit in a studio and over a 3-year period paint a massive masterpiece or a large work, where they're gradually building up the layers of paint on that work. And literally Fleur spent nearly 3 years building this work, Two-Dimensional Life of Her. For example, every single minute puppet, of which she made about 200 or 300 of them, was built by Fleur, and then she would photograph them and then video them and then look at how they interrelated with other images through a projected technology. And then she might take those puppets into a different world with a series of drawings and see how they interacted with that particular space or that those images, and eventually created a series of works that were edited down gradually and slowly to form a narrative with continuity, albeit not a narrative which has standard conflict resolution and then epilogue. It's essentially a series of studies or of explorations of the image of character or the image of place or the image of a state or a feeling, the image of herself, as you see here, in a particular landscape. So yeah, the work is also, when you see the work presented within the context of a theatre, you both see it as engaging with new technologies, but it has this feel that it's archaic and old and it's still coming to life. So there's a sense of it happening as you see it in front of you. There's almost the feeling that it could be live, and there's almost the feeling that Fleur as the artist is present in the space, creating this moment as it occurs. Heavily scored with large soundtracks, so there's also a very playful aspect to the worlds that Fleur leads you through, and Fleur has this beautiful, as an artist, has a beautiful idea and intuitive understanding about the presence of the child in her work and in her life. And again, it's not something that Fleur has necessarily, having known Fleur now for 12 years, she's not consciously making work for children, because works like Ruman and Two-Dimensional Life of Her are played in arts festivals and major venues around the world, but including places like the Barbican, etc. But there's this meeting place between her narratives and her spirit that enables the child to find themselves immersed in her world, her visual world. And it's probably just one more comment, Davide, which I think is really interesting, which I think in the context of making theatre for young audiences and children specifically, and say under the age of 8 years of age, Fleur is not concerned about the child's fear. And Fleur has children herself. She's a mother of 2 children. I think that's relevant. So she's experienced what it's like to be in that space, having the responsibility of children in her day-to-day life. And she's not concerned about the notion that a child may face fear in her theatre and in their experience. And the confrontation of being scared or having to manage your own fear is something that Fleur is comfortable with as an artist, and asking that child to understand or to relate to how they might see their own fears is a critical part of her theatre. The Architects of Air, they're primarily based out of the United Kingdom, out of Manchester, and the artistic director or creative director or artist is Alan Parkinson. And we've been working with Alan and their company now for a number of years, it'll be over 10 years now. I think just to also begin by saying that as technologies have improved, what Alan has been able to create has also given rise to even greater detail in terms of how his sculptures have been able to be manufactured. They conceptually begin with a reference point to a particular architecture, whether that's from a particular place, country, or culture, and then the sculptures emerge obviously as drawings to begin with before they are manufactured and then cut and by hand, I might add, and then made by hand with a polyurethane plastic, which essentially is so thin in its fabrication, its manufacture, that it allows the sun's rays to shine through that material. So again, you like Fleur, you have these very traditional forms of artistic practice in terms of its fabrication of making with the hands, which is supported by new digital technologies, and particularly drawing programs and programs that enable us to look at how, for example, light moves through particular, in this case, plastics, because you can obviously model them up now in programs which allow us to see that. The success of Architects of Air and Alan's work is the culture of the community that can gather inside the sculptures. Now, the sculptures themselves, as Davide indicated, is divine. The light and the experience of the light is something that that could be considered spiritual, could be considered to be one that it's also an environment too, like say, I suppose have similarities to Saltbush in that it invites the child into the space in a way that's very open, is very participatory in terms of the expectations of meeting that child's need and desire to run or to touch or to feel or to lie down or to crawl or to lean against an object. but then it also invites the child to be with someone older than them, or their parent or carer or grandparents or their friends, because it's an expressive environment in which you can move in and be in and participate in. And I agree with David. I think that, like, as a sculptural work that now depends on the technologies that we all work with within our practices, it expresses that meeting point so beautifully, because it is both human and also reliant on other aspects of how we deal with making. And its scale also obviously is critical because it enables us to bring people together.
So, okay. This was the speech we recorded from Jason, and I selected the concept from his speech with a specific criteria, because I agree with him, and we share together the concept he said. So somehow we were talking the same things, and we think in the same way. What I found important is when he was talking about the fact that even if you're using somehow cold tools like technology, video projection, and software and devices, the last task is creating the sense of a community. And talking about the sense of community, I would like to invite maybe Stephen Mcintosh, who ran BAM, Brooklyn Academy of Music in New York. And in his work, the sense of community, it's rather important. And also he runs a specific project called the Technopolis, in which they want to investigate the possibility to create participation with the audience, and also new kind of languages, a kind of a new grammatics way to talk with, and especially with non-verbal languages, which is important internationally to communicate each other. So maybe Stephen, you can talk, and if you don't mind, I can also send some pictures of a Technopolis in background. What do you think?
Thanks, Davide. I, with your suggestion, created a little PowerPoint with some images. So
you can do
video.
well,
yeah.
Okay, you can do for yourself. Thank you.
Well, first, just want to thank Davide and the Assitej Italy group for the invitation to one of your Toolbox sessions, and honored to be with esteemed colleagues, Tony, Liz, Jason, in this conversation. I'm coming from the stolen land of the Munsee Lenape, Matinecock, and Canarsie people. Today is known as Queens, New York, in New York City. My pronouns are he, him, his. And what Davide asked me to do is give some background of a particular project at the Brooklyn Academy of Music called Technopolis. I'll just spend some time framing how that connected to our institution, what it is, what we learned. And because it is a project that we did prior to the pandemic, also wanted to highlight two projects we've done in the past year to highlight how we've been engaging audiences through technology in this lockdown moment. So just some little context. I work with the Brooklyn Academy of Music, which is actually the longest continually operating performing arts institution in the United States. We've been running over 150 years. We've done a lot over that time period, but how BAM is known currently, if you know it, is for its contemporary performing arts presentation, notably the Next Wave Festival, which is the United States' largest dedicated festival for contemporary performing arts, which started in the early 1980s. We're a multidisciplinary institution. We present every art form, but with a particular focus on the contemporary arts. So first, before I get into what Technopolis is, I wanted to share why this came to be, this idea around a dedicated festival for creative art and technology. Well, first, BAM has a long history of working with artists who use technology. From the very beginnings of the Next Wave Festival in the 1980s, we were working with artists like Laurie Anderson, Robert Lepage, artists who were utilizing technology in their art making and storytelling. So we had a history of artists using tech. Also, I believe Chunky Move, which a dance company that utilizes motion responsive technology. So we had a history of it. We also had a history of providing platforms for artists who weren't being presented elsewhere. Part of why the Next Wave Festival came to be was because there were artists in New York City who were creating work and not finding places to perform in the city, and were being performing in Europe and outside the city. So BAM provided a place for these artists. Many, many who we now know today got their beginning on BAM stages. So providing a platform for artists making new work that don't quite fit to be presented elsewhere is in our history. We also, in our relationships with artists and conversations, and as I was doing research, it was clear that more and more artists are playing with technology, using technology. So we wanted to be responsive to what artists were doing, what they were creating, what they were making. And while the performing arts, particularly for family audiences, in some cases, there's the value of a departure from technology. Parents who want to pull their kids away from the iPads or the screens. We can't deny that technology is an inescapable part of the human experience. So we recognize that while there is a place for storytelling and art with less or no technology, that there needs to be a place, because of its place in our lives, that it also exists in the art as well. So just to give you some visual context, here's last year's trailer of Technopolis. I don't know, am I able to share sound as well? So what is Technopolis? It's a dedicated 3-week-long interactive arts and technology festival that takes over multiple spaces in one of the buildings of BAM's Performing Arts Campus, the BAM Fisher Building. This particular festival is, while a lot of my work and programming focuses on ages 3 to 11, this was a program that started at age 6 and went all the way up to adult, which was new for us. Structurally, they were 2.5-hour timed sessions, and we really maximized every possible use and audience for this festival, which included weekend daytime interactions for families, evening sessions for adults, weekday sessions for student groups coming in, and even weekday afternoons for our teens, after-school program teens, to work with the technology and create their own work and choreography. The festival itself features a range of interactive tech, from virtual reality work to augmented reality pieces and mixed reality, and a lot of sensor-based technology and displays. The idea was that this festival was meant to inspire creativity, help our audiences of all ages and backgrounds connect with the future, and encourage a renewed sense of play. And curatorially, what went into our selection of these pieces was they had to connect with the performing arts in some way. They had to be pieces that inspire the same creative impulses we have when we pick up a trumpet or set foot on a stage. So every piece, and sometimes loosely, had some way of engaging the performing arts through technology. So I just put down some learnings, both in the preparation of and through the experience of offering Technopolis, that I wanted to share and Davide said would be valuable. One is that in the planning stages for this festival, which we thought would only take a year and ended up taking 2, we learned how important it is to bring all stakeholders into the story early and often. What I mean by that is the what of Technopolis, the who, the why, the how, bringing to the table marketing team, development, folks from our institution, because we found that people resist what they don't understand. And the more that we helped everyone familiarize themselves with the work, the terminology, the differences of how we were presenting this work was really helpful with getting the buy-in. I think Jason, well, maybe, sorry, I'm jumping, but another thing is it gave us a chance to embrace new opportunities, but that I'd also say, as you're enjoying, for example, the opportunity to activate, we got to activate spaces in our building, traditionally non-performative spaces, to engage our audiences in, whether it was the balcony up from our black box theater to our lower lobby area. We're really excited about the new opportunities for engagement, but we also needed to take time and give space to work through new challenges. For example, how important internet connection was. And we may be really excited about activating a new space, but if it was hard to get internet, there were new challenges in order to make it successful. We also found that the low focus of our audiences engaging with this technology really encouraged more audience participation. We love live theater productions that incorporate and bring in the audience, but we know that the audience at sometimes feels the gaze of the rest of the audience on them as they're in the work on stage with the company. In Technopolis, there is no audience. So the low focus really emboldened our audiences of all ages to be creative, to have fun, and do even more than we've seen from them in some of our performance productions. And that creativity inspires creativity. I think Jason shared this, that there's, you get just as much enjoyment engaging in the work as you do from watching others engage in the work. And that creativity inspires creativity. So there were definitely times where a bolder community member would come and engage with an interactive wall, and someone might be standing off to the side, more tentative, but by watching that other member engage as they drifted off to somewhere else, that person would slowly inch in and start trying it for themselves. So community activates community in these spaces. Also because unlike live theater or dance or music, where we have more limitation about self-documenting, taking pictures, in these experiences, participants are free to self-document and share experiences on social media. So, and I didn't put on there, but if you looked up hashtag BAM Technopolis, you'd see a lot of great examples of our community creating their own little artwork, their own little videos, moments, choreography, and it was a wonderful way for us to get feedback on the types of experiences our communities were having in the space. There certainly are new accessibility opportunities when we talk about differently abled patrons, wheelchairs, those who may need to be able to move about in the space. So this work was really helpful in giving more accessibility to our audiences, but there's also challenges. For example, those that are familiar with the Connect sensor that is used often in the sort of motion responsive installations is based on the participant having 2 arms and 2 legs. So there is more work to be done in looking at how technology disables audiences and how we can work to make the technology accessible for all. We also love, we also loved how you don't outgrow wonder, and where technology transcends age. By offering VR, we had elders from the community, we had cool 20-somethings on a date, and we had families. All were interested in this new technology. It was all new for all of them. So that is a learning and something that we found as a attractive point. The use of technology attracts all ages. And then lastly, a learning was just how important our festival staff were to the experience, both in helping with the magic and connecting with our communities who came through the experience. When I've done my research at other installations, and what I often hear from patrons when I ask questions is they have this fear. It's common that they're not getting the most out of the experience. They're having fun, but maybe they're not getting the most out of it. So what our festival staff were really great at doing is not prescribing the experience, but being there and recognizing when there were moments to give our patrons a little more information if they needed it to get that much more out of their experience. Technology attracts us because it's new, but then it scares us when it's unfamiliar or we feel we're gonna get it wrong. So the staff were really helpful in bringing a sense of calm, assurance, and comfort to our community who are engaging it. I'm just quickly gonna share 2 things that happened this year, just to note that we switched during the pandemic. And one is our annual BAM Kids Film Festival, which is an annual festival celebrating stories on film for ages 3 to 11. I just want to note, we did it completely virtual this year. Everything from interactive workshops to performances to making all the films video on demand. And just to note that just the power of film and sort of an opportunity, I think, for live performance artists and theater makers, dance, to consider film, not just translating live work to the screen, but thinking about film specific work. Just seeing that this work translated so well for our audiences and we got such a positive response. We're definitely wanting to, when we come back in person, offer this festival, but grow the virtual side of it as well. So that's just one sort of note, aha, from this year around engaging our audiences virtually. And then the second, which is coming up next week, if anyone's interested in attending, we have an annual presentation of a hip hop spoken word concert called Word Sound Power. It's geared for ages teen and up. And what's different this year is that we are working with a theater maker that is using Isadora and some other platforms to allow us to present the show completely live, but completely virtually. All the artists will not be pre-recorded. All the visuals, everything you'll see on the screen, from filtering, mirrors, layering, intermingling of artists who are in separate locations, will all be done by the designer in the show. And so it's new for us, but sort of another opportunity to use design elements that bridge theater, TV, and cinema into a very unique live, but wholly virtual experience. So we haven't done it, but it's looking great, and we're excited about what that can open up for the future virtual performances. And I'll just end on saying, BAM is committed to continuing in our virtual programming this coming year. We see that as an additional stage that we are adding to our campus. So we've invested in a virtual platform and are excited about both virtual work and the use of technology that artists will use as we bring our audiences back to our space. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm very happy to have been in BAM twice with my artwork and honored to be there in Technopolis, because it's such innovative and such strong and creative moments to share with the artists that it's really impressive. And another thing I wanted to say is that when we work with innovation, when we try to create a new grammatics and make different tools working together, and we do this kind of research, we need not only to be brave, not only to invest into things that maybe couldn't work, but also we need to find a person able to understand the potentiality of your work before you get success on stage. And in my experience, I met two of the persons that are now here in this meeting. One is Gerard and the other is Tony Reekie, who understood the potentiality of artwork that at that time it was really pioneeristic and very raw as a technological experience. But fortunately, Tony Reekie invited our first show using capture and eye touch sensors in Imaginated, and from there we had the chance to travel all over the world. So what I'm saying is that at certain point of an artist's career, it's important to meet the right person who is enough sensible to understand that it's a good work or not. And the selection that Tony Reekie made in Imaginate Festival when he was directing gave the chance to many groups to grow up with their own creativity and the artistic doing. So I'm glad that Tony is here now. Maybe at the moment he's not running anymore Imaginate Festival, he's running the company of Catherine Wheels. But also I appreciate the fact that he swapped from one position to another. And also I wanted him to present the experience he had in Shanghai, where we can see a new frontier of in a youth theater market. But anyway, my question for Tony is, we have at least two possibilities of using technology. One is to make in itself finding more and more new potentiality as technology Technopolis is doing, and the other is to combine traditional things and innovative things. So in your work with the Catherine Wells, I appreciate the hybridization of a different kind of tools put together, and for me this is quite important to investigate. So please, Tony, if you can tell us something about.
Thank you very much. And please, if my English sometimes can become quite Scottish, so if it gets too Scottish, if you can just tell me, and I'll try to speak slower. Thank you very much for inviting me along today. And I suppose what's been very interesting for me, you can tell that I actually haven't prepared anything technological for today. And the one thing I have learned from my experience over the last year is how utterly useless I am personally when it comes to preparing anything technologically. And so whenever I do these things, it tends to blow up the screens or makes my computer shut down. So I don't want to send Italy into darkness. So it's just going to be me talking for a while. The real interest for me in terms of this discussion today is working with Catherine Wheels Theatre Company, who are a very traditional theatre company. And that journey of a traditional theatre company, one who make work for stage, for live audiences, and tour, being put into this situation which we're all in. So I think maybe a lot of my experiences over the last year are perhaps similar to some of the experiences that you'll have had as well. Oh, there's a film happening now as well.
I got one. I got the red one. That was a funny sound, wasn't it? He keeps giving us kisses.
He does.
So That was an app that was made for our production, White. And the interesting thing about the journey of White as a production through this time, at the beginning of the pandemic, like a lot of people and a lot of artists and a lot of companies, there was a desire for us to do something, to put something out, to make something. And we had to stop ourselves from doing that and from moving too quickly as a theatre company. And part of the reason that we stopped ourselves is that we watched a lot of other companies doing the same thing, and we're watching pieces that didn't seem to actually suit being put on in that format, that reaction to what we were doing. And a lot of the work that we were watching, particularly at the beginning, was not particularly great as an experience. So for us as a company, we had to think about what we could do and what we could do within the terms of the work that we had. So I suppose coming back to one of these things, which was, did we actually have a piece that we thought was actually going to work being seen on screen, being seen live on screen? And the production that we thought was best suited to that was a show called White, which has toured for over 12 years and has toured across the world, and seemed to be best placed to be a piece that would work in front of an audience online. So what we did was it gave us an opportunity to do a number of things. It gave us an opportunity to pay people. It gave us an opportunity to make something, which at that time, last August, was something that wasn't really happening a lot. As you can imagine, for all of you who have made something during pandemic, it's been an interesting experience having to go through that process. But what we wanted to do in the end was to make a film, and to make a straight film of the production, but to make it as good as we possibly could. And there's been discussion already about community and that sense of what you want to achieve in terms of this. We were quite clear with our film of White that it was to be watched within a certain context. So when we made the film, it's to be watched in schools with school classes. And it's to be watched by them as an audience, on as big a screen as they possibly can, to try as much as possible to give them that experience of being in an audience, and being together, being in an audience. The lovely thing about us being able to do White also was that it's actually quite a difficult show to tour. It's not a straightforward show to tour. It needs 2 days to set up. It needs to sit in a venue for quite a long time. And so in Scotland, it's actually not an easy show for us to get round. And so making a film, we were then able to take it out to communities that we would never, ever have been able to reach before. And so the great thing for us was that we were able to go into certain schools who only have 8 children in the whole school. So some of the schools in the furthest north of Scotland, in the islands, were able to have access to our work in a way that they would never ever have before. So these things worked really well for us. And we also then made the app, which you saw at the beginning, so that it became this experience that could hopefully be rounder than and broader than just the experience of getting the show. when the schools got the show, they had it for 2 weeks, so they could watch it as many times as they wanted. And what we wanted to make sure was that every child that could see it was able to see it. So we tried to give them as much space as possible, so that they could all experience it together. And so we ended up touring at Christmas time to 85 schools with the film, which was watched over 950 times by those schools. So each school watched it 10 times. And so from that point of view, it was, in some ways, it was very, very successful for us. It's now gone on that festivals now want to have it as well. So we're trying to figure out how that might work, holding on to that idea that we want to keep it as a community experience as much as we possibly can. So we did that as a straight film. Our next piece that we will do will be, which will be on at the Edinburgh Fringe, if that happens, will be a live stream of a show. So it will be live performers performing in front of an audience. But the overall experience for us as I said, as a traditional theatre company, is that the next production that we make, which we will be going into rehearsals in September, the company's made the decision that it will not be doing anything else apart from making the show as it is, and then waiting until there is a live audience for it. So we're trying to have, in a sense, a balance. We've got White the Film now, which is now there. We can tour that again this Christmas. But for the makers of the work, the making of work online has not been the magic thing that at the beginning it potentially promised to be. And there's more of a desire to make work for that live audience. The other thing, which is just to balance up again with regards to the company, one of the things which through this experience, and again, I imagine a lot of you will have had this as well, is it's given us as a company, as artists, an opportunity to connect with our communities and our local communities in ways that we've not done and should have done a lot better a long time ago. And so a number of the projects that we are doing now, which are online and are interactive and digital, are about us working very closely with individual schools, individual communities, which are very close to where we are based in Scotland. So at the moment we're doing a project based around Islam, which is one of the big topics in Scottish schools at the moment. And we're working with 3 artists, including a Muslim writer, to work directly with children and interact with children in a school. And the starting off point from that is that the school has a garden, and what we are going to do is bury something in the garden, which they will find. And from that, we have a 3-month project, which will be digital, interactive, but will also have live elements to it, which is about the journey of what happens when they discover this object. So it's an interactive project where the children drive the story as much as we do. And so that whole history and the whole nature of what the pandemic has brought forward has changed us quite a lot in terms of what we are as a company now, to something which is much, much more interesting than what we were before we went into it. Utilizing all the different technologies that we have, but holding on to that thing, which is essentially, in the end, we're about human beings connected with each other.
Thank you, Tony. And as I was saying before, if the artist has still a chance to make research, investigation, and to roll over is thanks to sensible and sensitive person like Jason Cross, Tony, Stephen. I also need to mention Gerard Verfay, who is running Crocus Festival, who is also one of the festival who hosts the more innovative research exists at the moment in youth theater. And last but not least, Liz Ran, who is a young producer, and she directs a young company based in Beijing called Tongue Playground or Tongue Production. And I think that for all the people that now are in this meeting are curious about China, because China is a new frontier. It's something that not easy to understand, not easy to approach. And in my artistic experience, the collaboration I had with leads in China was one of the more significant I had in the last years. And I wanted to share this experience with all the artists, because I think that China in these years has a lot of opportunities. Again, for the fact that in China, at the moment, it's possible to recreate a sort of virginity for many companies, and also the fact that the combination between innovation, future, high tech, and traditional languages are so strong. So I don't know, Liz, if you are ready, if you want to tell us something about your experience, because I think that in Europe, to know something about China can be very interesting.
Okay, so thank you, David, and thank you, colleagues from Assitej Italy. And I say hello again to Tony and Steve from last week meeting. As you can see, I'm now in the theater, actually in the concert hall. So actually we are running the last rehearsal and technical check before tomorrow's show. So luckily, all the performances are back to normal in China at the moment. And tomorrow we will have a new premiere at this concert. And again, this is another co-work by Tone Production and TPO, I'm glad to announce. So dating back, so actually when we talk
the audio went down. Just a moment, Liz. We had a technical problems with your audio. Can you test it again?
So how about now, David?
Yeah, now it's working.
Yes. So maybe, I don't know if the internet connection is not stable. I apologize for that. This is nothing I can do to improve. I'm sorry. So actually, even for Tone Production, we are young. We are only 6 years old up to now. But the whole story starts from the first collaboration between Tone and the TPO 6 years ago. That was dating back to 2015, when I was searching for some good children production for the Chinese kids at that moment. And it was dated, I guess. We discovered each other, I mean, Tone and TPO. And as you know, as a children's theater company producer, TPO is quite distinctive from the rest of theater. I totally share what Tony Reekie just mentioned. I still think live theater is very, very important for kids at their age, and it's nothing can be replaced by any digital or high-tech technical means. I mean, as a mother, from my point of view. But what I like about TPO is that they use technology as a means of expression, but not to show off the technology. And also because of the application of new technology into theater production, it creates more opportunities and it creates more possibilities, and it breaks out the boundary between different formats of art. And for example, the application of the technology used in TPOs, which create more immersive experience for kids. And what I like most is also it gives the possibility to witness the kids' reaction, which has no preparation before the show, and it gives an opportunity for the parents to see their kids' very instinct reaction, which is very precious from a parent's point of view. And also, I think the application of new technology makes something, I mean, traditionally impossible possible. So when I first experienced the show with TPO, I mean the way how they designed the theater inspired me immediately. I think it was a very nice start. After I watching the show from TPO, I have already some ideas popped up in my mind, which is very inspiring. And I immediately talked to Francesco Gandhi at that moment. He was touring with TPO show to China. And we shared a lot of talkings, we shared a lot of thoughts. And luckily we took action. That's why we have witnessed the huge success for the co-production between Tong and the TPO for Panda's Home. I think I have a theoretical design in my mind about today's China. And I want to introduce this China to people, I mean, who live in the 2020s. And I want to, because I have been in the UK for many, many years. And I know there was a kind of old impression or about the past China. But over the past 40 years, China has witnessed huge development, huge changes. Even for me, I have to face the ever-changing China as a motherland. So, but when we talk to children, we have to translate the theater language into a scenery or into a language which can be easily understood or can be easily accepted by the kids at their age. So at their ability. So in this case, we have to do some artistic adaptation. And the application of new technology makes things possible. And that's why, for me, I think when we're talking about the application of new technology in children's theater, we have to be clear what we want to express this production, what we want to share from this production, and maybe technology is only a way, or it's just part of the way to realize the production. So my internet is not very good, right?
Well.
So, okay, so just quickly, because I guess the concert is running close, but just to hurry up. When we talk about China, I don't think I will be able to share with you comprehensive or a whole picture about China, because it's too big, it's huge, and it's with such big population. Even for me, I don't get the whole picture of China, because I was born and I was grown in Beijing, and I am familiar with the environment where I have been grown. But when I travel to other cities, when I travel to the second, the third tier cities, or even when I travel to the countryside, to villages, even for me, it's like I stepped into a new world, which I have never been thinking, I have never imagined in my life. So China, China is a country, but in the meantime, it is like a new world, which is divided, economically and also from educationally. So it's very, very complicated. So when we're talking about children's theater, I think it will be good if we have a rich, a rich selection or a rich choices for the audiences to choose. Because before we invited TPO and other European theater come to China, so it's very, very often in China we have big theater for kids. So we don't have a small or medium-sized theater for kids because it's too expensive. And we don't have so many black box, or we don't have so many space theater for kids, because with such big population, if the theater is supported by the government, they have to think, how can we investigate we invest a certain amount of money producing a theater production, and how many children we can reach from this theater production. So in this case, we have to make the theater big and to accommodate more and more kids. And at the moment, I think in China, we have big theaters, we have authentic state-owned theaters produce very traditional but also high-quality children's theater productions. And we have more and more young professionals dive into this industry, producing some works with their professions. And also we have more and more theaters from abroad, like what we are doing right now. But like we just mentioned, the pandemic has changed things suddenly. So from last year, it was not able to see foreign productions in China. So we have witnessed there's also a trend that more and more young professionals start to work to produce theater works, either for adult or for the children as well. So as you can see, we are going to have a concert tomorrow, and this again we have combined a traditional Chinese music together with some visual design from TPO, and thanks to the mutual understanding and mutual trust established from the past 5 to 6 years. And I think now, even if we share some creative idea with TPO, it's more easy compared to some Chinese artists. I feel more comfortable to talk to TPO. So that's why when we have this production in mind, I got in contact with David, and we shared our artistic idea. We shared all our music trailers, and we shared all the script. So we have this production putting both parties' effort together. So you will see, I will show you the stage from here. You see? So actually, the stage is almost ready. We will have dozens of Chinese traditional instruments together with the visual art design from TPO above the stage. So we will have the premiere tomorrow. So I will be able to update you more maybe after this first show, but everything sounds very good from today's rehearsal. So we are very optimistic about the show. And just quickly to conclude my conversation, I'm sorry, because I'm pushing to finish. So I think it is good for both parties to understand each other. I think this understanding or this trust is established based collaboration. So we have to have the first step to finding a way to work together. Only through mutual working together, you will be able to understand each other. either from the artistic aspect or as as two teams from the concept or from the way of working. So it provides more opportunities and possibilities. Yeah. So I can't hear you.
I was saying thank you, Liz, for your contribute, and finger crossed for tomorrow. Then this is another example of a production made in remote, one from Italy and the other from China. And thank you for all this advertising that you made from our company. But anyway, I was appreciating the fact that the human collaboration and mutual understanding can grow up our human experience. Well, we are almost at the end of our meeting. I don't know if there are some questions around.
Tony, have something to say? Yeah, okay.
I was just going to add in, sorry, I was just saying that the time is 5 to 5 in Scotland, and on a Friday that means that you actually have to have a drink. So cheers to you all.
Yes.
One of the, I was just following on from what Liz was saying, what's been really interesting, because I had that opportunity to work with the Art Space for Kids in Shanghai for a while, and was helping them to bring in work from different parts of the world into China. And at the beginning of our relationship, there was that real reluctance, I think, as Liz pointed out, about Chinese artists actually making work for children. And it was all about bringing in work from outside as being the thing that was, as in a sense, being the only thing that the audiences really wanted to see. And one of the very few positive things that has come from the pandemic is that it has created that impetus, hopefully, for Chinese contemporary artists to start to make work for their audiences. And hopefully now that the balance of work which is being presented to children in China becomes much richer in a sense than what it perhaps has been. I would say to anybody, if they do get an opportunity to present work in China, please try to do it, because it is quite a wonderful experience. What it does though, and it's maybe just throws this up again, is that one of the things that is the challenge for us, and maybe where technology perhaps becomes more crucial, is that touring in the future is going to change. Moving around the world is going to change. And the way that we communicate is going to change, because once the pandemic is out the way, we are going to be left with the climate crisis. And the reality of what that means to us is something that I think that we have to take on board. And so again, maybe that use of technology in terms of how we communicate with each other, where perhaps we are not going to be able to go around the world as much as we did. It's in a sense carrying forward that kind of discussion, which might be interesting. I'll stop talking now.
No, thank you, Tony. It was a really interesting point of view. So don't be scared. We have some more time.
Yeah.
I heard something.
I wish I could have more time to share. I mean, to share ideas with you, because it is really inspiring. I mean, talking to all your professionals, but it's already 12 o'clock in China. And it's really very bad time, David, I have to say.
Okay, Liz,
next time, please.
Don't worry. Thank you so much. And
no, I just want to say one point before we finish the talk. I think from my contact with all the Chinese professionals. I have a very, it's not, I have a feeling that I think in 5 or 10 years, you will be able to meeting more and more, I would say right artists to work with, because I think China, although it has gone so fast, and also everything has been changed so fast as well, which include also the educational system. So imagine my kids' generation, when they grow up, they have totally different compared to what I had from my childhood. So at the same, what I understood today, or what I appreciate, which I don't have much in common with my parents' generation, because we have witnessed still huge changes. So we can now see Chinese from a stable, from a stable situation. It has been changing day by day. And when we're talking about production, in terms of artistic production or any theater or any other kinds of collaboration or production, so for me, I don't really classify the production or artists from nationalities or national boundaries. Because for me, I met similar, the right people in China, in France, in Germany, in the UK, but we also witness there are people at a more similar background from China, from the UK, from France as well. I think the educational level, your personal experience, and a lot of things have formed this person's either qualities or personalities. So we would like to see the whole world is really a flat world. I mean, even for theater production companies, we have to decide where we want to go. You have to find your own position. You find your own market. There are always the right group of people for certain kind of production. So only we have these rich choices, the world is becoming more interesting and more meaningful. So just to be yourself and be unique. And I think I'm quite positive, both for Chinese domestic artists and also for the future international collaboration as well. Yeah, very positive. Chinese view.
Thank you.
Davide, I know this is the 6th conversation. I'd be interested to ask, like, how has what's been shared connect with what you all have been discussing, help illuminate, or, you know, would love to hear from attendees, yeah, what's resonating, since we weren't in the prior conversations, of how this is part of the larger discussions and topics you all have been talking about.
Yeah.
So I pick up the moment, sorry. Stephen, as we said during our last meeting, we create a virtual hub via platform, Slack platform, by using this platform. So here you can find video recordings, slides of the guest speeches, and any related materials about the 5 previous Toolbox meetings. So this can be helpful. Most of all are in Italian, but the last one was in English language. So you have, and the last one is very important because in these meetings, we share 7 keywords that we have collected during the meetings of this month. So this could be helpful for all the, to have a whole experience about the Toolbox meetings. I'm sending you all in chat. You can find in the chat the link, and you can join us. So we can stay in touch. Thanks.
I have to ask now, what are the 7 key words?
Go, Elisa. Talk about the 7 key words. You've done it, so you have to speak about them.
Just give me 5 minutes to find them. Because, so just few.
I have a question, if I can, for our guests. Because I work especially for early childhood, and so the age of 0-6, and my question is it the same to use these digital tools with those very, very early child? Because I see also that Stephen talks about the festival from 3 years old, but what about the 0-3, for example, age? Because my doubts are, is it desirable that we put a so very small child with the technologies, and in which ways it could be nice? So.
There's also another question, Gerard, you have to say something, but okay, no, you wait for the second round.
No, it's something completely different. So maybe
okay.
Okay.
So you were asking about this question to somebody in specific, or?
No, not specific, but if someone feels comfortable to answer.
The app that we made for the production White, so White is for audiences from 3 up, and so the app works and seems to work and has been designed to work for 3 and up. Although when we showed it in schools, that was for audiences from 4 to 6. I wouldn't be able to say about that online or interactive experience for the very, very young. I think other organizations that do that work on a more regular basis could have more to say about that. I have no idea how you go about with that with babies, to be honest.
Okay.
I'll share, and it has been shared, just we at BAM and BAM Kids traditionally would have 1 performance a year that was geared for that 0 to 3, 3 to 5. But it's been shared just the cost and, all of that's been learned for that to be a successful performance experience, being a much smaller audience, more intimate, the aesthetics, all the elements, just is a high cost. So for us to work more consistently in an ongoing basis artistically with that age, we do that through our education programs, where we have a roster of about 45 teaching artists, and it's really our work in schools with that age group is the majority of where the sort of artistic work happens with that age group.
One of the things that that seems to be an advantage of where we are at the moment is that there is more potential to actually carry on doing live interactive work with very, very young audiences, because they sometimes are outside the restrictions that other adults are in. And so I know that some artists and some companies have been able to go into venues where babies have been able to be brought in a sort of distanced way. And they've also carried that work forward into exploring work for children with severe learning needs as well. So working with children who are autistic, Again, because of the nature of those schools, which have got very small sizes, there has been that ongoing opportunity to actually have access with them. But I don't think it particularly works in a digital sense.
Thank you so much.
Okay, and now Gerard, it's your time.
It's past 6 here in Belgium, and we don't drink yet, so we're not like in Scotland. Sorry, Tony, I cannot offer you anything. So we will have to wait until we meet again, and we'll have a beer. Now, just a thought and a question, because I'm in the middle. I'm here because I'm in the middle of writing a funding application for the future of Crocus Festival until 2028. Everybody who's familiar with that state of mind knows what it is like. So we have lots of ideas and brainstorms and talks, and one of the 4 lines we will develop for Crocus is the digital line, is a new line. We're calling it now about new technologies and transmission of artistic voices in different ways. There are 2 thoughts there and maybe one question. So far, new technologies have entered, let's say, live experiences. That was exactly what TPO has been doing for many years. We know about projection and sensors and lots of things. The sound aspect is much more about the visual aspect than the sound aspect. So we would like to work on the sound aspect as well, because we feel that there is not that much done in that particular field. But the pandemic has learned, of course, that there are live streams and there are recorded versions of performances, and what, like Tony said, if you link that to a community, that's an excellent thing to do. On the other hand, I'm really fed up with live streams and all that stuff. So we have had a huge poll in the Flemish side of Belgium. 94% of the people want live experiences again. Of course, that will turn into something. The digital is there, and there is a future in there. So what is of my interest is also, so far we have been focusing on live streams and on pre-recorded things and put them on a digital level. But what about art forms that are specially made for the digital world, specially created? There's a lot of potential in there, and I'm working together. I'm trying to set up a network now with 3 other festivals and a producing company on that. And we feel that there is a lot of work to do and a lot of potentials from creating things that are not intended to be performed live, but are intended to be in a digital world. And that's a different way of creating. That's a different way of thinking. That's a different way of watching things and so on. So maybe that's already a next step between the live and in the introduction of new technologies in the live, and then the captation of the live and bring it to the digital world. But really working in the digital world is maybe a next step as well. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, and maybe there are some reactions, or maybe if you know something which is really good that is made for the digital world, let me know, because I would like to show it in Crocus, definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really crucial to be having that those thoughts and that kind of discussion, because there are so many artists out there who are ready and capable to take that step about creating work, which Stephen talked about as well. That work which is specially made, films which are made to be films, that all that skill and experience, and so many other art forms which can work in that context. And for the more traditional of us, sometimes to actually step back and say, we don't need to go there. What we do is what we do, and what we do has that worth and that purpose. And simply because we're in a pandemic doesn't mean that we all have to live stream. You know, God, please, let's not everybody live stream. You know, and so I think it's really important to be going down that journey and what it does is it opens us up as audiences to new artists as well, which I think can only be a good thing. You know, rather than in a sense, it's coming back to theatre companies, which in a sense think they have to try to do everything, because we don't, because we can't, and we shouldn't have to. So I think that kind of movement, Gerhard, is really, really welcome and really, really exciting as well.
Yeah. I think that in this situation, we should keep our heritage, I mean, theatre heritage, and make it possible going into different platform. For us, maybe it's easier because we can swap from theater to movies to other kinds of digital experience. But also, I think in these moments, through Italian festival, for instance, we are trying to create groups of companies together and make investigation and research of finding other platforms that not necessarily will work just for this pandemic period, but can be a starting point to discover something else, as you were talking, Gerhard. So we have something in mind. It's not ready yet, but we are working on it. Sorry, Linda, I interrupted.
No. I just want to say to know if Elisa is ready for the synthesis, the short synthesis.
The 7 keys.
The 7 key.
Definitely, I wrote them in the chat, and I was saying that you will find a complete speech on Slack channel. By the way, the 7 keywords are play or to play, the silence, language is updating, public engagement, focus in the present, liveness, and transmediality. And then going deeper is better, I think, to read the complete speech because it's really, I don't know.
Thank you so much.
I'm
for that.
working on it, so you'll find it right as soon as possible.
I particularly like silence. That's a nice idea.
Silence, yeah. The difference between the silence in the theater, the silence that precedes the show, and the silence that you find here when you are waiting people in Zoom chat or something that is happening in the artistic way. That silence like an empty space, a little bit scaring, you know. So it's not like the moment in the theater where the children are ready for the show, and so there is a lot of positive energy. Here is quite scaring. I think it's the good word.
Yes, very good word.
Yeah. Thank you.
I don't know if we are ready for the conclusion. Linda, what do you think?
I don't know if there are other answers. There are questions. I'm sorry, not answers. We don't have answers.
The answer is inside you.
I don't know. I don't think so. Yes, I prefer the depth. So don't be shy.
I just wanted to just say, if there aren't any questions at the moment or whatever, it's just such a pleasure to be in a room with Italian colleagues again after such a long time. It was, I didn't realize it before, you know, because you do these Zoom conversations, and we all do them all over the place. And it's only when you suddenly are in the situation where you see so many faces and so many names, and it brings back, it's just a very personal thing, so many memories of the people that I've met, the artists that I've seen, the companies that I've booked and worked with, and what an incredible force and power and history that you and your colleagues in your country have in terms of children and young people's work. And it just, yeah, it just brought it back to me, seeing you all. So thanks, and it gives me another chance to raise a glass to you all, and to you all moving forward as well.
So if there's no other, if there are no other question, if there are no other answer, if there are no other things to say, I just say thanks to everybody, thanks to our guests. Thank you, Tony. I understood almost everything you said. So thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Jason. And thank you, Davide. So if Davide, if you don't have nothing to say, we must say goodbye. Let's keep in touch. The record of this meeting will be on our YouTube channel, but also the other meeting, the last one that was in English, is already on our channel,
Yes, yes.
YouTube channel. Okay, I'm not so sure.
You can find it in
thank
the
you.
YouTube channel of Assitej Italia. So.
Okay, so Davide, I leave you again the floor.
Okay, so thank you for all the participants, of course. It has been a pleasure to share with you my experience and the experience of friendship with some of the delegates that were in this meeting. So I hope that all the things that we said could be interesting for you, and maybe we can go forward and keep to talk about also from the artistic point of view, or for the personal point of view as a person who works in this field since a long time. And yeah, as you said, Tony, it's somehow is also important just to share our experience we had in these years, and especially in this moment that all of us are missing the stage. So thanks to have this virtual stage that was so warm, and thank you for kindness to be here and give us your contribute. I think that we can wait for better moments, but as for now, I just say thank you to everybody.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Ciao.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Ciao.
Ciao from Italy.
Ciao.
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 Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Have a good
Thank you,
day.
Liz. Thank you, Liz.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Liz.
Bye.
Bye.
Ni hao.
Ni hao.
Ciao. Vero.
Ciao.